given that it's a weird week, we're joined by the weirdest guest of all, our Habibi of the hour, Ryan Girdusky. Ryan.
Hey. So anyway, speak to me. How you doing?
Good. Ryan is the author of the They're Not Listening, as in they're also not reading this book. How the
son of a bitch. Truly one of the worst people that I know.
This revolution, is that what it is?
When the jihad comes, it's going to get you first. I just want you to know. Like, literally, it's going to cut you first.
You have a copy of your book. Show it to everyone.
No one's going to buy it. You can buy it, though. I got to pay rent. Buy my book.
Yeah, buy it.
It's a great doorstop.
Yeah. And Jay, what the fuck is going on behind you?
Well, this right here is for afterwards.
Is this your Microsoft Flight Simulator that you got going on?
They don't let me download that game. They banned me from it.
It's because you never learned how to land.
Nope.
Unless Siraj never learned how to score, so that's it.
Unless it's in the 69th floor of a building.
Nice.
You literally just killed my joke, though.
Say that again, Ryan.
You said you know how to land. I said, don't worry, Siraj never learned how to score. But never mind. Fuck it. Don't worry about it. It was a way better joke than your joke, but don't worry about it. What the fuck do I know? Son of a bitch.
Oh, man. All right, Ryan. Well, the reason we brought you on, obviously, to shit on you, is to talk about some of this stuff going on with the Lincoln Project, because this is what basically started off the week, is this report from the New York Times, which those motherfuckers didn't even give you a hat to. Basically became a prominent story. It forced the hand of the Lincoln Project 3 weeks after you originally reported on it for the American Conservative. But at the very least, John Weaver, who is a co-founder of the Lincoln Project, 21 men essentially came out accusing.
Do you want me to set it up? Are you sure? Because I'll just set
Well, I'm going to ask you about it.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just going to say 21 men accused John Weaver of online harassment. Since I said essentially all of us got a drink, and Jay has
100%.
That's what we do, is you got to drink every time I say essentially, and he says 100%. Ryan, every time you say fuck me, that's when you got to drink.
That's like a recipe for alcohol poisoning.
Yeah. So Ryan, tell us what exactly happened and how this story unfolded and why it took so long for the Lincoln Project to finally disavow this motherfucker.
So, okay, back in late May, John Weaver followed me on Twitter. Anyone who's been following my interviews kind of knows the story already. Back in late May, John Weaver followed me on Twitter. I didn't really think of it because I don't really follow everyone who follows me on Twitter. But a day afterwards, a couple young guys, like three young guys actually, messaged me and said, "Hey, we want you to know this is who he is. He does this to young men. He reaches out to them and promises them job opportunities, and then changes the conversation to a sexual manner and basically asks for sex." And I literally was like, this is the only show I could actually read John Weaver's messages if I wanted to, and how horrible they are. But the more like grotesque ones, you can't read that on Ingram. Right. Anyway, so they reached out to me, and I spent months and months trying to get one of them to go on record. It's like really hard when you're dealing with a situation like this. A really powerful guy, young men. They just don't want to go on record, and I don't blame them because they don't want to have their whole lives ruined. I mean, Lincoln Project's all lawyers. They have a powerful media organization supporting them. They have millions upon millions of dollars. And finally, I got a few to go on record in August, and I was getting calls. Since I was asking a lot of questions to a lot of people, I got a lot of calls that people in the Lincoln Project knew that I was working on the story, and they actually confirmed that they knew on their podcast that was released yesterday. So anyway, so the story gets killed though because John Weaver says he has a heart attack, and then the editors wanted to give some time because they couldn't get a statement from him. And every time the story was delayed because of those problems with trying to either get young men on the record or get a hold of John Weaver, another young man would drop out, and it just delayed the story basically until the story was dead. Finally, in January, I was just fed up with the Lincoln Project and their big bag of bullshit about like trying to hold people accountable for something that Trump did if they worked in the Trump administration, that I tweeted, maybe I should talk about a member of Lincoln Project who's been sexually grooming young men in exchange for jobs. Maybe his wife would like to know. A rather bitchy comment, but whatever.
Yeah, but you're kind of a bitch, Ryan. So
yeah, I kind of am a bitch. So
that was an
anyway,
epic tweet.
So yeah, the tweet got 5 million impressions. I never check impressions. Like I got to check this impression because it's crazy. Anyway, I wrote, but so I didn't have anyone to go on record at the time, and I was like really screwed if no one did. But I put it out there, and then luckily enough, people did go on record, and young men said, "Hey, I'll let everyone know it's John Weaver," and I started writing up the story like immediately. As soon as I had 2 people on the record tweeting it was John Weaver, I was able to sit there and write the whole story. And I did. It came out January 11th, I think. Days were like blurring. Scott Stedman, who was attempted to be groomed by John Weaver, he wrote a story on the 12th, I believe, and I appeared on Ingram on the 13th. And throughout all of that, they didn't comment. The Lincoln Project didn't say a fucking word. They took John Weaver's picture off of their website. That's all they did. And then Axios put a story out a couple of days after that, or maybe a week after that, and basically gave John Weaver an out, where he said, you know, my problem is I'm a closeted gay man, but I have a wife who I love, and I've had these interactions, but I thought they were all consensual, and they were all above grade and whatever. And the Lincoln Project statement after that was like, well, we don't have to add to anything. Or it's something to that effect. I mean, I don't have verbatim top of my head, but it was something to the effect of, well, you know, we'll just stand by what John says. Mm-hmm. And then 2 weeks after that story, 3 weeks after my original publication, the New York Times article comes out talking about a 14-year-old boy, and now they are outraged. They were blindsided. They had no idea about the allegations. They are, you know, extremely upset and disappointed by his behavior. They wish they had called the authorities, all the rest of the stuff. So that's the general trajectory how the story came out.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to read this comment here. Chris Kinder. Hold on, sorry, Jay. I'll get to you in a sec. Chris Kinder says, I'm only here for the Lincoln Project dunks. I don't care if you go for 4 hours. I'm here for the continuous jizzing. This is the most intelligent show on the internet.
Absolutely. I like how like an old boomer, he had to like get really in there. It's like jizzing. What? What is jizzing?
Well, when you have a micro penis, can you really see anything?
Sorry, my hair is like out of control now.
What were you about to say, Jay?
No, I just find it fascinating that this is the lie or the go-to quote that a lot of these people take, that like, oh, I was a closeted gay. So
it's the Kevin Spacey defense.
Yeah, Kevin Spacey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
and
like,
Axios didn't have a follow-up. Like, hey, you're not accused of, you know, being a 61-year-old having an affair with a 61-year-old. If he was, you know, having an affair with a man of his age, literally, I wouldn't have even read the story. No one would have cared.
Yeah.
The thing is, you were offering sex for jobs, and Axios did not follow up on that point. It was a puff piece and a get out of jail free card that they were willing to write for him. And they did not even fucking quote me or link to my story when they wrote the fucking thing too. So I was a little perturbed about that. And I emailed the writer and I was like, hey, you didn't quote me. You didn't link to my story. You didn't mention me. You didn't mention my publication. And he's like, oh, I'll fix that. And then tweeted a link to it. So take your finger and fucking, yeah.
Wow.
I hate these fucking legacy media journalists who do that shit. It is the most infuriating thing. Like,
and the New York Times at first, they've fixed it since then. The original New York Times story was article in a magazine appeared and it linked to my story.
Wow.
It didn't fucking appear. I wrote it. Like, what are you fucking talking about?
That is amazing. I don't understand how they're not. There's a problem. It's not only on this story, but a lot of stories that come out from right-leaning publications that end up on places like the New York Times or Washington Post. They are not linked properly. I don't know if they do this solely with right-wing writers or stories or anything, but I know it's happening.
Just cite me, because you know what it is like, and I'll give a shout out to, I think his name is Amy Lynn or Amy something or other at the Washington. I should know her fucking last name. Amy from the Washington Post did call me and spoke to me and asked me for comments and questions. So they actually followed up at the Washington Post. New York Times, fucking nothing.
Real quick, Mr. Kenzo. Thank you, Mr. Kenzo. R.I.P. John Wiener. Thank you. He says, "Thank you, Ryan, for ripping the lid off this." And then he asked, "What do you think about Karl Rove knowing for decades?"
I'm not. I mean, let's like Karl Rove. Here's the problem with the Karl Rove allegation. At the time, Rove and Weaver were like in contention to be the biggest political consultant in Texas. So when Rove made the allegation that he saw or he heard of John Weaver reaching out to young men in a hotel lobby, I believe it was in 1988, people thought, oh, he's just trying to take out a political opponent. Because imagine 1988 in Texas was what's the worst thing you could possibly be? To be a Republican is probably gay. So people didn't take him seriously because it was Karl Rove.
Right.
And I think that they probably just brushed it off. There was an article in The Atlantic in 2004 that republished those 1988 allegations, and they didn't reach out to Rove to see how serious his allegations were. And I believe, if I'm right, according to my sources, I believe everyone involved with that flirtation, besides John Weaver, has since passed away. So, I mean, I've looked into it, but unless you have a victim. Karl Rove wasn't a journalist, and the journalists at the time thought it was just Karl Rove, being really aggressive and trying to, beat down an opponent.
Yeah. One other. It was Amy Wang. David Toll says
Amy Wang. Thank you, Amy Wang.
Was the Washington Post reporter. They specifically referenced you.
They called me. We had a conversation in my car.
No, I know, but in the actual story too, it's not that they just called you; it's that they actually gave you credit.
Yeah, which I appreciate because no one ever fucking gives me credit.
Well, I don't, because for obvious reasons.
Because you're a dick.
I give you credit every time I slap my girlfriend's ass.
You don't have a girlfriend; that's your mom. Royal.
Oh my God.
LB, my dog is sleeping. I'm trying to get him up so I can sit there and show you.
Yeah, let's see. Where is LB? LB on here. Okay, come on. It's LB on the track. There he is. There's Royal. Yeah, let's wow.
Has any Lincoln Project member commented to you or talked to you, messaged you, or done any of that?
Not a fucking word. Their interns have. The interns who have been sexually harassed by Weaver have contacted me, and I've spoken to them. And now the Daily Beast, which is run by Lincoln Project editors, their gender reporter, which I know is a thing, is now calling the interns asking questions. So to do a story, but they all work for the Lincoln Project people. So
I'm curious, Ryan, because obviously, and I want to play this clip right now, just because this is what appeared in the days since the initial, obviously the New York Times report and the Lincoln Project finally denouncing him, or I guess going with John Weaver's statement. I don't know what the fuck they did, but we got Rick Wilson here basically saying this shit.
So, we have made a very clear statement. We have taken care of a problem. We have acted from principle. And the folks who are accusing us of awareness of this are sick. They are, in fact, putting themselves in jeopardy. I'll just say that as bluntly as I can. There will be a moment soon where the jeopardy you put yourself in by making those accusations.
All right, so basically Rick Wilson is like threatening anybody who is accusing any of the members of the Lincoln Project of knowing about John Weaver's sexual misconduct and her sexually harassing and grooming of young men. And arguably, were there any underage boys?
14.
There were 14 of them, or
there was a 14-year-old. That's only legal in Afghanistan.
Okay, all right. So
That's the only way your uncles got married.
Says the only non-Muslim on the show. Come on, think of a better insult.
Yeah. Okay. So
that was to Siraj.
So
no.
Now that obviously Rick Wilson is threatening people for making those accusations, what can you tell us about what they knew, how much they knew, and when you think they knew it? I mean, what have you heard, and what do you?
Well, I mean, so on that podcast, or on a different podcast, I don't know which one it is. So they've done like 3 or 4 now. Rick Wilson was like, if you want to call me, you could. If you're a victim, you want to call me, you want to scream at me. I did not know. I'm so sorry that this happened to you. Yada yada yada. They're all like apoplectic and just apologetic and so remorseful for the actions of John Weaver to these victims. And rather than saying thank you to the journalists who brought this to life to save young men, they are immediately going to a threatening mode of you don't like what's going to happen to you if you accuse Royal, get over here. He's eating something. Royal, get over here. Sorry. I'm like, what the hell is he eating? No, he's like chewing on something. He yes, I did a show one time. My dog was taking a shit in my room, and I'd sit there the entire time, not screaming at him. Yeah, he goes to this whole thing. I do not think Rick Wilson or anyone else in Lincoln Project knew about the 14-year-old boy. I think that especially since I was on this story for months, and I did not know about this 14-year-old boy. And you have to remember when we said the New York Times 21 young men. Mm-hmm. I had 30 sources. Scott Seven had 60, he said. The New York Times had 21. Even if there's some overlap, we're talking about 100 men within a 5-year period. I don't think that they knew about the 14-year-old boy, and that's the case that they are particularly focused on constantly. They don't really ever mention all the other young men who are 19 and 20. And maybe they speak about them in a broad way, but they don't speak them individually. Mm-hmm. I will say that they did acknowledge that there was a story being worked on at the New York Post. By the way, I have never mentioned I was working on the story with the New York Post ever publicly until they said it. So how they got it, they said that the Trump campaign told them. I didn't tell them in the Trump campaign. I have no idea how they got a hold of the fact that the publication I was working with. So that's odd. But they heard that a story was being worked on this summer. One young man publicly accused 3 members of the Lincoln Project, including Mike Madrid, a co-founder, and then 2 other members whose names constantly slip my mind. I have to go like searching for their names, but 2 other members that he told them specifically about John Weaver, and they did nothing. The woman, wait a second, this is actually worth giving me a second to look up their name. The woman involved was, the young man said, and this isn't a tweet, so this is a public thing. He won't speak to me to verify it. Sarah Lenti, he said, when speaking on the phone with Sarah Lenti in September of this year, she knew about the entire thing and brushed it off. He said, I told Keith Edwards, who then went to work on the John Ossoff campaign, and Mike Madrid about John Weaver, and they never reached out to me or apologized on his behalf. Don't hold your breath. They made me look like a fool thinking I had their support. So all members of the Lincoln Project. Sarah Lenti, he gave some kind of time. It was in September. My story came out January 11th. Mm-hmm. I was on Laura Ingraham. These are shows that a lot of these people watch over and over and over again. And Scott Sedman's story came out, I think, on the 12th. So 3 major things happened in 3 days. They did not respond to it for 3 weeks. On one of the podcasts, Rick Wilson said, we heard John Weaver was up to some weird shit. What does that mean? And why has no one in MSNBC or CNN, who've had them on dozens of times, said, what do you mean by weird shit? What does that mean that you heard weird shit? So I can't tell you what exactly that they knew when they knew it. Were members of the Lincoln Project aware? Yes, because young interns were being sexually harassed by John Weaver. And they're members of the Lincoln Project. And according to one person who said it publicly, others said it privately, but publicly, one person went up to 3 members of the Lincoln Project and told them John Weaver was sexually harassing young men, and they did nothing. And they heard a story was coming out. They've even acknowledged this. They heard a story coming out throughout the summer, as early as July, I'm being told.
Jesus.
And they didn't say anything. So the fact that these are the great, defenders of truth and honesty, give me a fucking break.
Yeah.
So that's as far as what I know. I genuinely don't believe that they knew about a minor, and I'm never going to make it that accusation because I don't believe it's true. But I was hard pressed to find anyone in Washington, D.C. in either media or political consulting who had never heard a John Weaver story before. As your friend and I, Yashar Ali, tweeted, it was an open secret, because it really was an open secret. And another person whose name I can't mention, who is a well-known household name, Republican conservative writer who hates Donald Trump, was asked to join the Lincoln Project, and according to a very well-reputed source in his circle, said no because John Weaver is a creep. I mean, there were definitely, if they did not know, they should get their noses checked out, because there was smoke in a lot of places. They said it only existed among 3 people: John Weaver himself, gay Twitter, which is not a thing, it's called election Twitter, and just for branding purposes, they call it election Twitter, not gay Twitter, as Rick Wilson was saying, and media people in New York and DC. And they couldn't possibly know because they're in Florida. That's what his defense is. So that's what I know about what they knew when. If anyone, and I mean, it's hard because a lot of these young men who worked for them are leftists, and they're still afraid of Weaver and no, it's not David French. Of Weaver and of other people.
Jonah.
What you call? I'm not saying any more names, so you'll just figure it out. But it's not. But a lot of these young men are still afraid to come out, and they do believe in the mission of the Lincoln Project. They did hate Donald Trump, and they, some of them have said, "I don't want to give." I mean, one guy who made that public accusation against 3 members of the Lincoln Project, he said, "I'm not going to talk to you because you're bad on immigration." And this is not a debate about the border. This is a debate about a sexual predator and people who covered for him. But right. I mean, we do have a lot of them are just afraid. And we do have a couple of cases of ideologically purist people who don't want to speak on the fact that, I have the wrong politics according to them.
Yeah, that's a crazy phenomenon. Like, I don't want to speak to Jay on normal circumstances, but because we're doing well on this show, I gotta talk to him.
That's what happens. It's your stance against ass eating. That's the reason why you try not to speak with me.
It is haram.
It is haram. But I find it's fascinating to me, because it's not only when you have a story like this, but you have a story like Harvey Weinstein, or you have a story like Matt Lauer come out and stuff. Like, these people in these positions that they're in, all of these firefighting, righteous journalists and Me Too, whatever fucks, and all you hear, they all knew about all of these things.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that people called me about, because the Lincoln Project is so litigious and they're threatening to destroy anyone, apparently, rather than thank journalists, if they really did care about, protecting young men, they would thank people like me who worked on the story for so many months. Right. The first thing that people called me and said, people who knew about the thing about John Weaver said, "You're not going to mention me, right?" And these are like nice people. These are friends of mine. They're good people, but they legit were like, "Just don't mention me. Okay, just don't talk to me about it, because don't talk about me, because I don't want, I can't be bothered with the trouble." So I get it. No one wants to deal with all that, especially if there's a big court case, but show a little bravery, like sometimes. Like, that's what I want to say, just show a little fucking bravery.
Yeah. Have some fucking balls, okay?
Have some fucking balls.
Abe Eckstein, thank you. Abe says, "Do you guys have a fatwa from the Lincoln Project guys to take care of Ryan?"
Look, if they're paying $69,069
$420, I'll do it.
Yeah,
I'll kill Ryan right here, right now.
Siraj will murder a man for $69. It it is like when our country truly goes to hell and murder is not illegal anymore, it's going to be some 99 cents like store, be like a $69 store. Murder anyone you want.
$69. That would be nice.
That would be super nice. Forrester Mike, thank you, Forrester, says, why do you guys think
pedos?
Why do you guys think that pedos are so overrepresented among powerful organizations? You got Epstein, the Catholic Church, etc.
I don't think they are overrepresented.
I think it's the spotlight, honestly.
I think the spotlight is very, very large. But if you talk about, there are more. I mean, he mentioned the Catholic Church, so I'll defend the Catholic Church for a second. There are way more priests who never did anything than did something. But if you look at, like, there are way more children who are abused by public school teachers than there are by Catholic priests. But you wouldn't sit there and say, wow, you're a Catholic school teacher, you're probably a pedophile. You wouldn't ask that question. I don't think they are overrepresented. I think when stories come out, they are.
The reputation of teachers now is like, oh, you're a teacher? Oh, you must be a giant pussy. Mr. Kenzo just sends us $8. I don't know. I think it's
I think he has a question right under that.
Frank Lasky asked pay the money. I'll tell you.
Here he is.
This is it. He says, Ryan, have you looked at the bankruptcies besides the one by Weaver and Wilson? Fred Wellman's is the worst. Fred Wellman's is the most interesting to me because you literally filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy just weeks before onboarding.
I have no idea about any of that. I'm only one person, and I'm incredibly lazy, and it takes me a long time to write a story. So I'm not going to be exposed in like one a week. I'm not going to have a special. I have a story coming out in 2 days, but I don't have how they've landed on me is like a miracle. I don't have like big breaking stories like all the time. So
yeah, no, we're you and I are both
all late. Fucking Katie Couric, okay? I don't have
time. Curtis Hunt. Hey,
Curtis.
Thanks for joining the stream, Habibi. He mentions obviously that MSNBC's Nicole Wallace is perhaps the one host on CNN and or MSNBC that has the most to answer for, given her coziness with these guys. And
she is a political consultant. She has a career in politics. She worked in the McCain campaign, I believe, with John Weaver. They had on John Kasich the other day on Wolf Blitzer. That was his fucking chief strategist. They didn't ask him shit. So, I mean, Meghan McCain is on The View every day. Ask her a question. She's publicly bashed John Weaver in the past. She hasn't made a statement before. Her husband's reached out to me a few times, but she hasn't said shit to me or anybody. So I mean, look, the thing is that all the token Republicans on all these networks worked for the same campaigns that John Weaver worked on. And I only know probably two people who worked on the McCain campaign who were higher up on the McCain campaign. Not household names. No one would know them, even if I said them. But they called me to tell me John Weaver was the biggest piece of shit on the planet. So they're like, we're not surprised by any of this. So the ones who knew him well and worked in this field forever, I would love to ask them questions, but I don't imagine anyone's ever going to. Considering that MSNBC and CNN had Lincoln Project people on their network 21 times after my story broke, before the New York Times story broke, didn't ask a question once. Then Mika Brzezinski, who sat next to a predator, Mark, what the hell is his name? Mark Halperin, for years, as he was putting his dick on women's shoulders, I believe is the story. And
for your dick too.
I know.
It's like the worst place to put your dick. Why the shoulder?
Right. Well, Siraj did that to me once, but I thought it was like his keys like hitting me because they were so small. But what you call it? No, but she sat next to us, and asked George Conway, what did you know, or what do you think? And he was like, there's just no words. And she said, oh, okay. Oh, there's no words. Okay, cool.
Wow. Fucking insane. Damon Toll, thank you. Damon says, Ryan, can you confirm that you're not suicidal?
That's a great question, because I say I'm going to blow my brains out 35 times a day.
We literally saying it right before this episode.
Listen, all I have to say is this. If I mysteriously end up dead in the next 3 weeks, Siraj is in charge of finding my body, taking a copy of my book, putting it over my face, and tweeting it out and putting a picture. So I gotta push product. That's all I gotta
And
say.
Ernie
All right?
pissing on your
Buy
corpse.
a copy of my book.
And Ernie pissing on your cold corpse.
My cold corpse.
Can I buy the book on Amazon?
You can buy the book on Amazon.com.
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, I just could
What?
make a bootleg copy and send it to you.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.